Don't you dare go hollow. This section we're going to talk about depression. So if you struggle with it or you struggle with your mental health, I think the video is going to help you for one, but also just be aware that we're going into a section which is going to probably be quite deep and it's probably going to bring up some feelings within you. But I think it's a really, really good thing to talk about. It's something I openly and happily talk about. And I do think this video itself is going to be something which is really beneficial for you.
Back in high school, I had a friend named Rob. One of my closest friends, Rob was in a constant battle with depression throughout his years in high school. While I didn't have to personally deal with depression, I was with him through a large part of his struggle, and I myself had to deal with chronic stress and anxiety. Depression, stress, and anxiety are all things that we've all had to deal with in one way or another. Whether it be helping a friend or family member through their darkest times, or whether we had to fight our own battles over and over, we've all faced it. We can all relate to it. It's no secret that Lordran, the land that Hidetaka Miyazaki's grim epic Dark Souls takes place in, is nothing if not dreary, hostile, and oppressive. This is a land filled to the brim with monsters and the cursed undead, who wander aimlessly after having lost their way, their drive, given up, and turned hollow. It's easy to just sit back and take Lordran at face value, easy to look at the game's hardships as purely the result of design choices, and easy to look at it as nothing more than a game. And while it is certainly true, I can't help but see more than that. To me, Dark Souls is more than just a game. It's an allegory for depression and the hardships of those who face it on a daily basis. Rob once described his depression to me as fighting the same battle over and over again with less and less drive to do so. It's a constant cycle of facing the same enemy over and over again, only to lose some of yourself each time. In Dark Souls,
Yeah. So if any of you have experienced depression itself, or experienced long stretches of periods of low mood, or been around someone who's had it, I think it comes in different forms, but I think that sums it up perfectly. I think it affects your motivation more than it affects anything else, really. I think it's the worst bit about when you go through periods of low mood, a lot of the time is it can be environmental, but it can also be something that is just a way that you are. There's the whole argument of, is it nature, is it nurture? Are some people just designed that way? Has your childhood just contributed to how you feel and how you respond to things? Has there been experiences throughout your life which has made you just the type of person who is just more unhappy? I heard two things recently which I thought were really, really cool. One was, I'm not an angry person, I'm a sad person. So rather than directing my anger outwards, I direct it inwards and towards me. And I think that could basically be a massive or a really easy summary as to why some people don't like themselves. Because my depression probably isn't driven from thinking the world is hopeless. It comes from me thinking I'm hopeless and that the world and everyone else can have an amazing life, but thinking that I can't. And mine happens because I am a sad person who gets angry at myself and can see all of my flaws and can see all of my problems and all of the reasons why I'm this and that. And that spiral can spiral me out of control to the point where I'm just beating myself up nonstop. From a depression standpoint, for a lot of people, if you're someone who is more sad than angry, you may just target that inwards. And if you're unaware as to why you may feel that way, is it environmental or is it just the way that you're processing and thinking about emotions? Is it emotions coming up from your childhood that you haven't processed? Being able to identify what that is going to be really, really beneficial. So like for me, I've done 3 different bouts of therapy in my life over the past 10 years. I've read countless self-help books. I've done stupid amounts of self-work on it. I created a well-being workbook all around trying to combat anxiety and depression. Like, it's something that's just been in my life for ages. I've lost people to suicide. I've been around multiple people in school who ended up taking their own life. I've seen friends attempt it, or been around friends that have attempted it, and it is a rough thing to be. It's a rough thing that I think needs to be talked about in a way which is like, it's all right, but there is a way out of it, and this is the way out of it. There is a way to be okay with it, and a lot of it to me always just comes down to self-awareness and being able to just do the work, to try and help yourself. Because if you're willing to help yourself, and in any way possible, because I think that should be the front, which is, as long as you are willing to do anything to not feel like this, and to not and to stay, and to not like take your own life. If you can find something that you can do to improve that, or you're willing to do that, that's all that matters, because eventually you'll find that thing, whatever that is for you. For me, it's massively driven by purpose and meaning. I need everything to mean something, everything to mean something, but everything for me is like, can be seen as meaningless, and that's why I have to have something that I'm chasing. That's why I have to have goals. That's why I have to have a purpose. In Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, they talk about the prisoners of war who ended up making it through Auschwitz, and a massive part of it was because they all had some purpose, some meaning within their life, whether it was a loved one at home waiting for them, or a work project, or an art project that only they could possibly finish. And I think that's why I'm such a massive fan of finding your specific niche and the thing that you love and are passionate about. Not necessarily needs to be a job, but something that only you do. Like, I've seen it with my friends. Like, I got a friend who for years and years was just not a nightmare, but he wasn't, I don't think he had much purpose and direction, found running. And as soon as he found running, it was like, okay, this guy's now like, he's now not as flaky. He's now not someone who is like unreliable. He's now not someone who is just down in the dumps all the time. Life is rough, but I'm doing these cool things because this gives me drive, this gives me purpose, this gives me somewhere to go. And I think finding that for yourself, I think is the way forward. And just know that, like, if you're battling with depression, it does feel like that. It feels like you are dealing with the same problems, dealing with the same monster over and over and over again, and having less and less motivation to actually be able to deal with it. So let's continue.
Basis. Rob once described his depression to me as fighting the same battle over and over again with less and less drive to do so. It's a constant cycle of facing the same enemy over and over again, only to lose some of yourself each time. In Dark Souls, specifically Lordran and the world around it, there lies something similar, though it manifests itself in a very different way. For an unknown reason, there was an epidemic among humans. An unknown but assumed large number of people were cursed, branded with something called the Dark Sign, and turned into the undead. Immortal, in a sense, these cursed undead are fated to roam the world for ages. Anytime one dies, they're brought back to life by the mysterious powers of the bonfires that are scattered around the world. As an undead loses their drive or their purpose or their goals, they begin to hollow. Much like many of those who face depression on a daily basis, they gradually lose themselves. To be hollow is, in essence, to have lost any real sight or recollection of who you are, and in a way, accepted your fate. A hollow is frequently found doing what it did in life. Soldiers will be soldiers, commoners will be commoners. For many, they simply sit around and stare at something, or they stay where they were when they lost themselves. Essentially just a shell of who they used to be. They have no purpose in what they do. They simply do it because it's the only thing they know, maybe even the only thing.
That's why you need meaning in your life, because meaning gives you purpose.
Thing they remember. The player character is one of the undead, though their fate is vastly different than that of the mindless hollows. They are chosen and will face hardships and trials beyond that of any other undead in this lifetime. As with depression, the chosen undead will fight the same enemies over and over again, and each time the player gets revived at a bonfire without success, they grow more and more hollow. There are two main ways that people handle depression and two main ways that people defeat Dark Souls. Some choose to go it alone, either trusting in their own strength or simply not wanting to be a bother to others. The rest will decide to call on the help of friends or strangers, gaining strength by having those friends or strangers by their side. Those who opt for facing the challenges solo will undoubtedly have a harder time without the support of a couple of friends. Depression is unforgiving. It's constantly pushing you, constantly throwing you to the dogs, and it does not hold back. It's vicious, uncaring, and apathetic all in one. At times, with both it and Dark Souls, it feels as if it wants you to break, wants you to give up. At those hardest times, the chosen undead makes a choice. They either accept defeat and
I think this is the other thing of like for me, which
give
is
up, or
I
they use
actually
the challenge.
care what people's kind of purpose is or thing that they're into. Like I'm a massive fan of people who are a massive fan of something, and I've like when I've played video games my whole life, right? Haven't actually turned my PlayStation on properly for probably like 6 months. Part of that reason is just like I've dedicated myself to work training as my main two things and socializing. And normally in the past, when I was stressed and I just needed some time by myself to just not really think about anything, because this is part of the problem I struggle with, is being able to sit down and do nothing is hard for me. Whereas if I chuck myself into a game and you're in some kind of fantasy world, it's the same when people read books, is you're kind of transported, or you're watching a film series you love, you're transported into that world rather than being in your world. And the world that you're in might be really stressful right now, which means that you need something to take you out of it. And these little breaks from reality, whatever that may be, is going to be the thing which gives you that just time to just recuperate, reset, not be mundane and ruminating over the same problems. And I was seeing there was like people going, oh, if you play video games, you're a waster, you're this and you're that. And I there's a massive part of me which is understands where they're coming from, which is you don't have drive and purpose in your life. And look at all of the things you could be doing if you weren't spending hours doing this hobby that gives you nothing back, which is mindless and da 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 da. Part of that's a generational thing, but I think part of it just comes from a lack of misunderstanding, or a huge misunderstanding and a lack of understanding, which is that some people, their lives are so bad and they are going through so much stuff, they need something to break them out of it. They need something like this where they can just lose themselves in and have that break away from reality. And I think telling someone like that you're a waster or a loser for doing that, I mean, that's not helpful at all. I think going along this line of purpose is what you need. And then having times where you can do things like this. This shouldn't take up your whole life. If you've heard me on this channel before, I spoke about red flags and green flags for your well-being. Red flags being signs that your well-being's in a bad place because you start leaning on crutches and vices and doing things which are detrimental to you. And then green flags, which are you are doing things which are positive, and the more green flags you have is a good sign that your well-being is good, and how many red flags you have is a sign that your well-being is bad. And mine used to be, if I found myself wanting to play my PlayStation instead of working, there was a massive sign that my mental health was in a bad place, that my well-being was in a bad place, because I was just trying to distract myself and get myself out of my current situation. And I think that's why you want to be aware as to what you're doing and why you're doing it, and having a purpose and a drive to move you forward, but then having controlled periods of time where you get a break from it, I think is really important. So like, if you're someone who you hear this on the internet where people are like, don't do this or don't do that, I think any sweeping statement just needs to be ignored, because the context is completely different for every individual. So whenever you see a piece of advice, lay the context of your life over it and try to understand the context is which it's being said. When someone's saying playing video games makes you a waster, that could be because they just did it when they were a waster. So they played video games because they had nothing else to do, and it's all they did because they were just like, they were a kid at the time when they did it. They may not be someone who, it's for them, it's their hobby, for them it's X, for them it's this. Because I'll have people who say to me, you train too much, you do this too much, you run too much, or whatever, or they'll look down on my chosen job and my chosen hobby. And it's kind of like, that context that they are saying that is from their point of view. And it can just be ignored if it does not apply to the context of your life. And like a subsection underneath that I always think about is think about the intent, or think about the way that someone's giving you that advice. So some people may be giving you the advice, and whatever they're saying is whatever they're saying, whatever they've done is whatever they've done. What is the underlying meaning that they are saying? What's the intent with what they're saying? So like, if someone does something to me, my thing is always, but why did they do that? Not like, why do they hate me? Why have they done this thing? It's kind of like, there has to be a reason underneath. There's got to be this intent. There's got to be this kind of, some values underneath it that we're not seeing because we're only hyper fixated on the situation. So it's like, what's driven them to say or do that thing? And if as soon as you can start to like put this context around it and this nice wrapper, you then get to be like, well, the thing that's annoyed me that they've done doesn't actually annoy me anymore because I now understand why they may have done it or why they've said it. It's like when your parents say something to you and you're like, why have you just said that? And it's like, their intent is probably good. So like, let's just say that they've said it the wrong way or not in the way that you needed it, because ignorance, like always don't attribute something to malice that can be attributed to ignorance every single time. Ignorance in the sense of they just don't know.
Is unforgiving. It's constantly pushing you, constantly throwing you to the dogs, and it does not hold back. It's vicious, uncaring, and apathetic all in one. At times, with both it and Dark Souls, it feels as if it wants you to break, wants you to give up. At those hardest times, the chosen undead makes a choice. They either accept defeat and give up, or they use the challenge as fuel for their fires. With both, despite how difficult things get, each battle can be won and each step forward can be made. Now, none of that is to say that Dark Souls is entirely relentless. If it were, nobody would play it. Instead, Dark Souls achieves a very precarious balance. For all the times it beats you up, it has something to encourage you. Usually it's the adrenaline from finally beating that boss or getting past those few enemies, but occasionally it's in the shape of non-player characters that always seem to have some words of encouragement. In this way, it differs immensely from Depression. Dark Souls flex the world with characters for you to meet, each with their own backstory and reason for being in Lordran. These characters and their stories are an almost constant presence throughout the game. The majority of them simply mind their own business and go about whatever it is they're doing, but a few of them actually encourage the player to press forward, serving as small bits of light in the dreary world of Lordran. In this way, Dark Souls provides the player with a support system akin to having a friend there to cheer you on. While you're not constantly around these characters, you see them every now and then, and 3 of them in particular are remarkably happy or cheerful, all things considered. As I've said before, not everyone has or chooses to have support in their fight against depression, but these characters all serve to be the same kind of support one would get from friends at your side. One character, Laurentius, genuinely cares for the chosen undead. After you save Laurentius from being trapped in the sewers, you find him at a shrine. He's always happy to see you, and he says something that's really stuck with me.
Goodbye then. Be safe, friend. Don't you dare go alone.
This may be the best line in Dark Souls, and it makes it clear that your fight, whether against the beasts of Lordran or against the beasts of depression, is not a fight that you need to have alone, and there's always some place or someone who truly wishes the best for you. I hadn't realized how truly important that line was until recently, when I was sitting down.
I think friends specifically, and just surrounding yourself with people, is going to be the best thing that you can do if you struggle with depression. Hence why we're doing this. I know I keep going on about it, but the whole point of this stream is because I know how rough Sundays can be, and I know how rough weekends can be for people who struggle with depression and struggle with mental health. And the reason we are doing these streams is because I want to give people a place to come. Even if they don't interact, it's just like listening and being able to feel like they're connected with someone. And that someone cares. Like every time I hear that someone's taken their own life, or someone's really struggling, or someone's not said anything, like it gets me. And it's like, if I can do something, I'm going to. And that's why we're doing this, because friends, a lot of people don't have anyone around them. They don't. Like I'm very lucky. I'm surrounded by people at all times. But for some people who struggle, to create social connections, because it's not something that's easy. Like, I spent my childhood either at the rugby club surrounded by 30 to 50 people every time I was there, all of all different ages and backgrounds. Or I was with my mum, who was a mobile hairdresser, going into different families' houses. Like, I had no choice but to learn how to socialize. So because I've learnt that through the years, it's now very easy for me to do. Like, it's very easy for me to socialize with people. So for some it isn't, which means that creating social connections and creating a relationship with someone who you can ask for help and who will actually be there is quite difficult. Like, I mean, this year, over the past 18 months, there's probably been like, I don't know, maybe like 10, 12 of my mates all became single in the past 18 months, including myself. And it's like, I had a mate text me the other day about it, like, who's uh, a recent member of our singles club. And it's like, right, I'm here for you straight away. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's have a phone call if you want it. Always here for FaceTime in. Drop me a message whenever you need me. Like, checking in with him weekly. You having that support system is really important, and finding friends is really, really important. And I love the line. Don't you dare go hollow. I absolutely love it.
I hadn't realized how truly important that line was until recently, when I was sitting down and playing through Dark Souls to reminisce. It brought me back to Rob and how it helped him deal with his depression, and honestly how Dark Souls had helped me learn how to handle my own problems with stress and anxiety. When I met Rob, he was in what could best be described as a rough patch. On top of having to deal with a recent and major loss in his life, he also had to struggle to keep up in school while maintaining a job, and the combined stress and pressure was putting him in a very dark cycle. He was fighting his
This is one of the this is why I always say about environmental, and like, is it just your situation? So like, for me, for example, like right now, if I'm struggling with my mental health, I know it's very much environmental, or like it's very circumstantial. The things I'm going through are the reason I feel the way I feel. I don't just feel this way. This isn't just me forever. And I think knowing that can be really helpful. It's like, do you have depression, or is your life just really, really hard? Like, is your life set up in a way which means it's difficult, and there's no joy, and there's no fun, and there's no like outlets, and you're stressed all the time, and you're under pressure all the time? And to some degree, like, depression can be seen as a bit of like a safety mechanism from your body to some degree, which is kind of, you're unable to kind of engage, you're unable to like deal with the world because you've got so much going on in your own head, or there's so much like pain that you're feeling in your body. Like, I'm reading The Body Keeps the Score at the moment, an unbelievable book, talks all about trauma, and and for that they're saying you hold it in your body. It talks all about attachment theories and things like that. And it's like, if you have all of this stuff built up within you and you don't really know, or you've got all of this stuff that's built up within you, and it's like, it's over time, it's accumulated to the point where you're like, I've now got depression, I've now been diagnosed with depression. Like, when it gets to that point, it's probably not just because you're depressed, it's probably because you've had one massive thing, three massive things, 100 tiny things which have all led to this point where it's like, okay, well, let's see if we can deal with these things one by one. Like, if I look at the causality and the circumstances which cause me to feel the way I'm feeling right now, what can I actually do about those circumstances? Do I just need to come to terms with one of them? And it's like, okay, how do I come to terms with that? What are the steps that someone would take to come to terms with that? If I was giving advice to a friend, what would they do? If I was already out of this situation and feeling better, what would I be doing to feel better? You've almost got to become the person who feels better and is doing all of the right things before you actually get there. It's that fake it till you make it type thing, because for a massive period of it, you're going to have to fake it till you make it, because you're going to feel dreadful and you're going to feel like you're just being dragged down all the time. And it's kind of, this is the only way that I've seen you can move forward, is to go like, okay, I'm going to deal with each of these circumstantial bits one by one and be like, what is bothering me the most? What is bothering me the most? What is bothering me the most? What can I do anything about these situations? I think of it like a snowball effect. So like, when you are in debt, and say you've got 5 or 6 different debts. Okay, you say you've got a credit card, you've got a car payment, you've got I don't know, say you owe someone some money, say you're like paying off your overdraft, for example. The debt snowball is you pay an equal amount off of each of the debts. And then when the smallest one goes, so once you've paid off the smallest one, the money that you were putting on the smallest one now goes on the next smallest one. And then the others are still normal. So then eventually what happens is you start paying off bigger and bigger chunks and you get out of debt quicker. And I think it's the same with this. It's kind of going, well, if I've got all of these different problems in my life that are causing me to feel this certain way, circumstantial, and by circumstantial, I genuinely do mean that it could be because of the dreadful childhood you had. It could be that. Like, mine wasn't bad, but like, just saying, it could be the dreadful childhood that you had, and it could be the bad relationships you've been in, and it could be the way that you've experienced love throughout your life. There could be deaths and grief that you're dealing with. There could be these big things that have happened over a 20-year span. It happened since you were a kid. But if you can start to identify what those are and start to deal with them, you might actually end up in a better place. So like, if you think about it, like you've got, say you've had a bereavement, you've lost someone, say you're struggling in work, say you don't like the way you look because you feel all fat and you feel all gross, and you're like, no one's going to love me because of the way I feel. And then say you're like, say the environment that you're living in is a problem. Say like you're in a shared accommodation with people you don't like, right? If you looked at all of those problems and then you listed them, what's the biggest one you're struggling with and what's the least biggest one you're struggling with? If you start at the one that's not bothering you as much, but is a big thing, and you still do it, you're still doing the work on the others, you can start to tick off things quicker. So then you've just got one problem to deal with. You've just got you're dealing with the grief from the bereavement rather than dealing with the grief from the bereavement, the fact that you feel you're unfit and unhealthy, the fact that you're struggling in work, the fact that the fact that you're working with, or you're living with people you don't want to be living with, or the area's shit. Like, deal with those smaller problems, and then eventually you have more brain power and more focus to be able to deal with the others. Life sometimes, it's not that you're depressed, it's just that your life is just bad. Like, there's just a lot of things that could be improved, and by identifying them, again, that self-awareness point, you'll be able to actually find a way through it.
Important that line was until recently, when I was sitting down and playing through Dark Souls to reminisce. It brought me back to Rob and how it helped him deal with his depression, and honestly how Dark Souls had helped me learn how to handle my own problems with stress and anxiety. When I met Rob, he was in what could best be described as a rough patch. On top of having to deal with a recent and major loss in his life, he also had to struggle to keep up in school while maintaining a job, and the combined stress and pressure was putting him in a very dark cycle. He was fighting his own battle over and over, and he was doing all that he could to keep himself afloat, to keep his light in sight. I forget exactly how or why, but Rob started playing Dark Souls. At the time, all I knew about it was that it was supposed to be insanely difficult in that it just didn't pique my interest. But Rob loved it. For the next few months, it was almost all he'd talk about. He spent hours, days on that game, and eventually he got me to try it. It was around that time that the semester ended and he moved away. After a couple of years, he came back to visit some family he still had in the area, and we met up. Immediately, I noticed something different about him. Rob was happy. We ended up talking about his battle with depression. He told me that he would still have terrible down days, but Rob assured me that not all of his days were bad. After moving away, Rob went through some very intense times and was in a darker place than before he'd left. He knew no one in this new town, and he'd left all of his friends behind. One of the ways he fought depression was by distracting himself, and Dark Souls was his favorite distraction. It offered a challenge, and it became a constant source of drive for Rob. It gave him a goal to pursue. He told me that he hadn't been able to find the right words to describe his depression, but had recently decided on a select few that really did the job. Rob told me that his depression was like fighting the same battle over and over again with less drive to do so. He told me that even though he was fighting the same battles every single day, he hadn't given up and he had no intention of going hollow. For myself, Dark Souls had ended up serving a similar purpose. Though I wasn't suffering from depression, it helped me.
I think, and that's kind of my point earlier, you've got to find something that gives you that break away from it. For me, like for the longest time, it's training. Like obviously, playing some kind of games does that, but like work does the same thing. It's purpose, and I think that's the thing that people who don't struggle or haven't struggled with depression may not understand. Depression, to some degree, is a lack of meaning and a lack of purpose, which contributes to a lack of drive in life, which means that you're down a lot of the time. And people are like, well, you've always got to be doing something. You're always chasing a goal. You've always got something lined up. And it's like, yeah, because without that, I really struggle. And that doesn't mean that the way I do things is right, but it's right for me. And it's right for me and the way that I'm struggling. Because like the way that I think about this, and again, it may just me default into what feels most comfortable to me, is I would rather be here and still be alive, working the way I work, and training the way I train, and pursuing life the way I pursue life, than living it by someone else's rules and being unhappy and then not wanting to be here. Like, you're way better off finding whatever it is that keeps you here than you are not being here. And I don't care what that is, because distraction to some degree by playing a video game may give you that time and that break to not think about what you're going through. But again, like they're saying about Rob, for example, it gave him a focus and purpose and gave him something to do. Right, I'm going to go and fight this monster. I'm going to go and try and get this level up. I'm going to try and do this. A bit like when you build a business, if you think about it like leveling up, you're trying to improve and trying to improve your product and get better and do all these things and learn the skills you need to learn and like kind of get up the levels, rank yourself up just like you are in video games. And I think, and it's a similar thing with training, is all of it's the same. You're progressing towards a bigger goal. There's a goal that at the end you want to achieve something, you want to do something, and you're working towards that. I think it's amazing to have those goals, because in the meantime, you get to figure out what is your true purpose and true drive. And that's the thing which probably maybe people overlook. What is... Yes, do these things to keep you going, to keep you alive, to keep you here. What's your bigger purpose and bigger drive? What's the thing that actually could keep you here from a longer term perspective? What's the thing that you are most passionate about? What's the thing that you are most driven to do? And the thing that gives you most joy within life, the thing which fills your cup the most, the thing that will keep you here for the longest period of time. And like, I know what mine will be. I know what mine is, even though I don't have it right now. Like, for me, it's like, I want a family. Like, I've always wanted one. I want a loving wife who is my teammate, and we are an epic team, and we just smash through life together. That's what I want. And then to have a family to provide for, to then experience life with, is the thing that I want. Like, that is it. And I know that when I have that, and when that is the big thing, the purpose and drive is through the roof, because it's like, now I'm not just doing it for me, I'm doing it for them. I'm doing it for us. And I think that's something that I've found, is that my purpose and drive comes from doing things for others. I get a lot out of being selfless in a selfish way, which is, if I can help other people and I can do things for others, and I do things for others which may mean the world for them but not really cost a lot of energy for me, I will do that all the time. That's the thing that gives me joy, gives me focus and energy, and I love it. And I think maybe trying to identify what you could do for others could be a way of finding your bigger purpose.
For myself, Dark Souls had ended up serving a similar purpose. Though I wasn't suffering from depression, it helped me learn how to handle my anxiety, stress, and anger. I approach things very differently now, and though I still have trouble, anytime I'm in a rough spot, I can always go back to Dark Souls and it will always help. To this day, I'm thankful that I ended up playing it. To this day, it holds a special place in my life. Dark Souls is easy to take at face value, as nothing more more than a game that's hard for the sake of being hard. For some, it's so much more. For people like Rob and myself, it's more help than anyone else was up for offering, and it ended up being more than enough. Those of you watching this that suffer from depression, I want you to know that there's always some kind of hope in that you don't have to do this alone. There are people you can talk to who can help, and they're probably closer than you think. I hope that all of you find your goal, a purpose, or the support you need to overcome that next challenge or to just take those next steps forward. Good luck to you all, my friends. Don't you dare go hollow.
I think "Don't You Dare Go Hollow" is the quote of this stream, and probably the quote of my life. Find something, find something, find something, and just keep chasing that thing, whatever it is. So, don't you dare go hollow.